What a wonderful experience it was to get ashore at Durban. Everything looked so neat and clean, and the plant life was green and subtropically lush. There was a small train waiting for us, and we chuffed out of the dock area into the country to alight at a halt below the Clarewood camp. The camp itself was astonishing. It was on a small hill with sandy soil, Kew Gardens greenery at its surrounds, and replete with strange insect life burrowing in the sand. I couldn't help admiring the excellence of its planning. It so well met its purpose of accommodating any comers. Great tracts of land were available, but just enough tents erected to hold the numbers due. Water stack pipes were available everywhere. Below the hill bearing the tents were the mess halls. They were a bit like great Dutch barns, with small walls to about 12 feet and open thereafterward to the roof. I don't know how many there were, but they seemed to go on and on. I think we were served quite good food, but my strongest memories, having come from the deprivation of Britain, were the ancillary foods. Inside, the halls looked enormous, like aircraft hangars. At the far side were trestle tables, stretching as far as I could see. On them, about 6 deep, were 5-pound tins of jam, not the sort we saw in Britain even before the war or since, but compounded from all the exotic fruits that are. There were melon and passion fruit, grapefruit and pineapple, orange and grape, you name it, they had it. In front were enormous baskets of steaming fresh loaves, complemented by 7-pound tins of butter. No other food was needed. We made pigs of ourselves, grabbed anything we fancied. We had no duties, and took the train to Durban each day as soon as we were up and dressed. Durban Station was built to the same design as the station at my hometown Newport. Many British stations are similar. It had a semicircular booking office. At each side was a large oak display cabinet glazed from floor to ceiling. In Newport, its counterpart advertised boys' suits. This one called for a truly cinematic double look. Perhaps I should point out that coming from England at that stage of the war, none of us had seen a banana for years. Any fresh fruit was a rarity. This cabinet was filled from top to bottom with fruit. Bananas, pineapples, grapes, oranges, grapefruit, apples, pears, melons, lychees, mangoes, and so on. A never to be forgotten spectacle, and an introduction to the wealth and high living of South Africa. We couldn't believe our reception from the local people. They couldn't do enough for us. Bill and I were invited to one of the big hotels, Hotel Edward, and given the use of a suite with a superb bathroom, and then we were wined and dined in style by the kindly wife of the proprietor. Even the service canteens, the Victoria Club, for example, fell little below its standards. I have on record a meal at the Victoria comprising 2 fried eggs, 2 scrambled eggs with bacon, followed by fruit salad and ice cream. Our lives, too, were full. We played tennis at the Jewish Club, and there enjoyed another enormous steak meal. We bathed in the bay, and everywhere we ate and ate and ate. And we'd pay a visit to the cinema and go back on the midnight train. Betty had an aunt in Pietermaritzburg. Her husband was the municipal treasurer there. I phoned him to pay my respects, and he invited me to come up and stay with him, but I had to point out that we were under notice to sail, and we were obliged to stay put. So we parted cordially, and I thought no more of it. It appears that when he got home and told his wife, she said, "Well, when are we going down to see him?" When she discovered he'd arranged nothing and didn't even know where I was, she blew up. The lines were red hot with calls, putting notices for me at all the service canteens and so on. I saw none of them. It seems that the commandant of Clarewood was a personal friend, and the nominal roll of the camp was scoured for my name. My only knowledge of this was when somebody on the midnight train told me that there was a message in the orderly room for me. I couldn't believe it. What on earth could have caused this? The family in Britain must have been bombed. What else? My agony of mind was not relieved when I got the message itself. Phone Didcot 2634. Oh, Lord. They must have been evacuated from Newport to Didcot. But why on earth to Didcot? It's near Swindon, isn't it? The following morning, a helpful telephone operator, explaining that it would be impossible to get through to England, suggested that there was a Didcot in South Africa. Should he try there? Having done so, to find that there were only half a dozen phones there, he suggested that the number I'd given him looked like a Durban one. Should he try it? Problem solved. Didcot residence here. So Bill and I went to see the Didcots, who it emerged were great friends of Betty's relations. Aunt and husband came down to see me, and peace was restored. The Didcots were wonderful. They gave us the run of their house, took us to see all the sights in their great Packard car, and took us to meet some friends who lived in the kind of bungalow that I thought existed only in Hollywood. Garage for 5 cars. This was in the days before tape recorders, but they had a thing that made little gramophone records, and they made a record for Bill and me to send home. This hospitality was all too short. The next day we were told to pack, after 12 days of almost blissful existence. And so on the 8th of May, we took our last journey on the little train and boarded the SS Ile-de-France, 43,000 tons and a most handsome ship. This time we were in bunks and able to see daylight through the open door of our quarters. What a contrast to the old Empress. Even so, we gazed over the vista of Durban and wished we could stay. For a moment we thought our wish was to be granted. The word swept round the squadron that 99 personnel were to grab their kit as quickly as possible and disembark. Alas, confusion seemed to reign and nothing more came of it. On the 11th of May the ship sailed, and we were all left with a feeling that something had gone wrong again, and that we should not have been on board. Still, as we no longer had any idea where we were going, one place seemed as good as another. So we settled down to enjoy the journey. The Ile-de-France was certainly a beautiful vessel, its public rooms unaltered from days of cruising, although we were surprised to find that she rolled like a pig, and even in the waters that seemed reasonably calm. There were splendid public rooms available to us. I attended a few church services for which the ship was well equipped. There was even a male voice choir aboard, and a concert in the main dining room. The ship went at a tremendous pace, unescorted because of its speed. We felt quite safe in her in these waters, and I even wore my pyjamas in my bunk, the first time since leaving home. A trite but rather symbolic gesture. 8 days after leaving Durban, we put into Bombay. All the other troops disembarked, but we stayed on board for another 3 days. We seemed to be outstaying our welcome, but no one seemed able to find out where we should be going from there, let alone why. We understood that the commanding officer had been in touch with Delhi since we arrived, but they'd never heard of us. We weren't on anybody's payroll or ration strength, nor was there a home awaiting us. In the end, after 3 days, we were turfed off the ship and taken by a small steamer to a dockside warehouse in the port, with all our kit, but no money or food, and there we had to cower. Out of the heat at least. What a welcome to India. Obviously the folk who tried to get us off the boat in Durban knew what they were talking about. This is the end of side 1